you can say, instead of just saying I don't agree with it, or instead of just being passive aggressive and not doing it or delaying it or doing all these shenanigans, why not just ask a question? Why not just and seek the right time? Because every time is not the right time to do and ask certain things. So why not ask a question and come from a place of curiosity and not from a place of debating and not of a place of I have to be right and I know more. The fact of the matter is your body. Hello everyone and welcome to another wavelength. My name is Waveney and I am your leadership mindset coach, and I am here to help you to level up, to change your mindset, to help you to become an influential leader. Welcome. So today I'm sharing my thoughts with you about one of the most important relationship. I don't want to say it's the most important, but it's one of the most important relationships in your career, and that is managing the relationship with your boss. All right. And so managing the relationship with your boss, we call that in leadership terms, in the HR world, we call it managing up. Managing up, because you're managing, your boss is in authority to you. You're in authority to your boss. Your boss is your senior, and so that's why we call it managing up. And it's so important that we speak about these things because, again, these are some of the things that are very surface level. These are some of the things that people don't tell you when you get into management, right? They don't tell you how important it is to manage that relationship. And I just want to put it out there right now. You may be looking at this and you may be saying, well, my boss is fill in the blanks. They're difficult, they're challenging, you don't know what they've done. You're right, I don't know what they've done, but I can tell you, I haven't always had great bosses, but I had to learn to manage that relationship, and it's important that you learn to manage that relationship as well. And so, like any other, and I'm looking at my notes, like any other relationship in your life, the relationship with your boss needs to be managed, right? Otherwise it won't work. And you don't want to go into work with all this tension, all this resistance, all this negativity. You want to at least try. And I can tell you one of the things that have made me successful is learning how to manage that relationship. And you've got to I can tell you, you've got to get out of your own way. You've got to get out of your own way. Because as I often say, if you cannot be led, you cannot lead. And it's not to say, this is not giving, if your boss is difficult, if they're toxic, this is not giving them a pass. It has nothing to do with them and everything to do with you, and I'll share with you why in a moment. And so, like any relationship, it needs to be managed. It needs to have boundaries. The relationship with your boss needs to have boundaries. It needs to have a level of transparency. It needs to have some level of appreciation, right? Think about any other relationship that's important, your friends, your family, your kids. In your life, there's a level of all these things, appreciation, because if people don't know you appreciate them, they're going to be feeling some type of way. The relationship is not going to last. It's not going to work, right? And of course, we have to manage the conflict part of it, because when you introduce humans into an equation, there will be conflict. There will be conflict. And conflict is a great thing. Conflict is not a bad thing, because we are not all alike. And sometimes conflict is healthy, because it is healthy, not sometimes. It is healthy because we can iron out misunderstandings, we can get to know people a little bit better, we can get to understand where they are coming from, their thoughts, their views, and their triggers as well, and we can work on that. So like any relationship, it needs to be managed. So why focus on this? So the first thing is it builds your capacity and it builds your skill set for relationship building. One of the things, two of the things I really stress on in my Communicate to Influence coaching program is work relationships and communication, because I have found that in my life, in my experience, in my observation, two critical elements. Yes, building your competence is fine, okay? And that's great and you must do it. But what I have found is that building your, working on your communication and building those, like really working on those work relationships will get you further. Sometimes we wonder why and how like this particular leader has gotten to this point. And when you peel it all back, it's not because everybody's afraid of them. It's not because of any other reason other than they know how to work the room. They know how to work relationships. They understand the human dynamic behind that. And so by extension, they are successful to a degree. And so you would want to look at these individuals to see what they do. And this is why I try not to make leading complex, especially in that coaching program that I have, because we tend to get overwhelmed with so many things. So I focus on communication and work relationships because I've seen the power of that. And so it helps you. You're building a skill. You are building a skill. For me right now, I will tell you, I could work with anybody. I could work with anybody. I am that confident. I could work with anybody because I've understand what needs to be done. I've understood, how important that this is. And so the second reason why you should focus on managing up, working on that relationship is it really builds your capacity to manage and sustain complex relationship. So as a leader, you are interacting with people all the time, and if the relationship with your team, I don't consider it really complex because you're in authority to them, right? I mean, they're in authority to you. You're their superior, and so it's not that complex. You may have one or two persons that may be challenging, that may be difficult, but you're on top. You hold that card. The relationship with your boss is complex because they really hold your card, right? They hold all the cards. They're in the position of authority. They're in position of power, and so by extension, that relationship is complex. Your boss is in that role because they've earned it, and they may have a lot of credibility within the organization. The people who they report to, the general manager, the CEO, whoever, VP, they may have a long-standing history with that person, and so by extension that relationship is complex because I've seen where people piss off the wrong persons, they step on toes. You don't want to do that. I'm not saying that you should be a doormat. I'm not saying that you should just let people walk over you. I'm not suggesting that, but what I'm saying is the relationship with your boss is complex, and by learning how to manage that relationship, you are by extension learning how to manage complex relationships, this is a skill that even if you leave that organization, you can use. The other reason why you focus, it helps you to have a deeper understanding for your boss. Your boss is human. I always say leaders are people too. And we tend to forget that. We tend to view people who are in authority like they're different. They're not. They're flesh and blood just like you. They have fears just like you and I. They have dreams just like you and I. They want to get things done just like you and I. The challenge is sometimes they don't have the tools. The challenge is sometimes they don't have a Waveney from the people's brand in their life. The challenge is many of them, they need help with their emotional intelligence. And so they're people just like you. And when we understand people, there is a tendency to be a little bit softer, to be a little bit more empathetic. And so you really want to go into that relationship from an empathetic viewpoint, like, okay, who is this person? What are they about? What are their fears? What are their aspirations? What's important to them? What's important to them, right? You want to know their backstory. I always listen to their come up story, as I call it, or their career history. I listen to their stories and the experiences they've had, because it helps you to understand where that person is coming from. Because you would want the same for you, right? You would want the same for you. You would want your team to understand you or to try to understand you. And so you want to give that as well. And then overall, it makes for a healthier work environment. It really does. You don't want to go into work every day, like I mentioned before, with the resistance, with the negativity. You want to feel comfortable. And so it is in your best interest that you manage this relationship. I had a boss and I love her dearly. And I respected her. We didn't always agree, but my boss did my makeup, right? She used to do my makeup because we had a conversation and I discovered she was great at doing her makeup, like professional. And my boss used to do my makeup for when I was going out. I would be like, hey, Leanne, I'm going here and there. Could you do my makeup? She's like, absolutely. But I had that respect. There was still that boundary. There was still that transparency with us. And, she's still in my circle today. She's still one of my friends today. And she'll always be my friend. But there's still that respect, and there was that respect. That would not have been possible if I didn't make managing up a priority. And so how do we do this? How do we cultivate this relationship with our boss? Number one is to seek to understand. I think it was Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits that said, seek to understand rather than to be understood. Many times we go into a situation where we must be heard. We want to insert our will, our thoughts, our views, our opinions on the other person. You might want to change that, scale it back, really go in with the mindset of, I need to understand where this person is coming from. Tell me more about it. You have to go into that relationship with a sense of curiosity. All right, so seek to understand. You have to employ a lot of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence has become like a buzzword, and it gets thrown around a lot. But a lot of emotional intelligence is really checking ourselves. It's really being mindful about us, how we think, how we feel. It's about understanding our triggers, and it's also seeking to understand the other person. It's about us changing and not so much the other person. And that's something people don't tell you when they talk about, oh, you need to get emotional intelligence. It's emotional. If you deep dive into emotional intelligence, it's about changing you and your perception and not the other person. So seek to understand your boss, because they're just like you. They are just like you. The other way that you do that is to ask questions. I mentioned just now about having a sense of curiosity, right? And it's not about a debate. Like if your boss gives you an instruction and you don't agree with it, you can say, instead of just saying I don't agree with it, or instead of just being passive aggressive and not doing it or delaying it or doing all these shenanigans, why not just ask a question? Why not just and seek the right time? Because every time is not the right time to do and ask certain things. So why not ask a question and come from a place of curiosity and not from a place of debating and not of a place of I have to be right and I know more. The fact of the matter is your boss is in a senior role, and many times, and I can tell you this as someone who is now a director, as we are filming this, I am a director. I sit on an executive committee. Many of you know I'm in hospitality, and I can tell you many times you don't even have time to explain the why, right? We want to do that, and I like to do that because I'm a person. I need to understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, right? And so I tend to do that with my team, but sometimes you don't get to do that. And you don't have, as a leader, you don't always have to say, well, this came from the general manager or this came from corporate, right? You don't have to do that, because I had a boss who used to say that's third party management. And if I ever catch any of you doing that, I'm going to document you. Because what he was saying is, don't go out. If I give a directive, if I say that I want this purple pen to be placed here, you don't have to go out and say, well, Max said this and Max said that, right? Because really you're not developing your influence, and you're not, I don't want to use the word assert, but you're not standing in your authority if you have to say somebody said this, right? And so many times as a leader, you don't get to say that. You don't have to, and you don't get to. And so many times when your boss gives an instruction, you don't know where it's coming from. They work for someone. They don't own the business, or maybe they do. But if it's you're working for them and they own the business, then it's their business, and by virtue of the fact that you're working with them, you must carry out the instruction, right? But we need to understand, we need to come and ask a question from a place of curiosity, because many times people show up in the energy of a debate. People show up in the energy of this is wrong. When energy is matched, even if you are not verbalizing it, body language is a powerful, powerful thing. And that's what people read, your body language. And it's done so quickly, and it's done on such a subconscious level. That is why, and I always use this example, that is why you walk into a store and you scan. And you're scanning for help, because sometimes the people that work in the store, they don't wear uniforms, and you're scanning and you're walking up to the person that seems most approachable. Why are you doing that? You're doing it on a subconscious level, because something is telling you, no, not that person, that doesn't feel safe, that doesn't feel right, this person feels right. Sometimes the person doesn't even work in the store. It's happened to me many times. But this is the power of our brain, and this is the power of our subconscious mind. So energy matches. People read energy. So when you're going in, and if you need to know more, go in with a genuine sense of curiosity when you're asking questions, okay? And then share your thoughts. Share your thoughts. I am someone who, I can do this, and I've done it, and I've practiced it, and I've asked my team to do it with me. You're not going to agree with everything that your boss says or does, or maybe something, an initiative or something that you're doing. But what I've always done is said, here's what I think, I don't agree, and here are the reasons. And there's usually a conversation around it. But at the end of the day, I support it, and I usually tell my bosses that, listen, I don't agree with this, and here's the reason why, but I will support it. I will support it because I can support it. You supporting something, you not agreeing with something, doesn't mean you can't support it, unless it's illegal, unethical, or immoral. And I think a lot of times we tend to dilute the two. We tend to mix the two. We tend to confuse the two. You can support and not agree. It is possible. It is possible. It is possible. And so I challenge you to think about that a little, because I know that this concept might be strange, and this isn't being fake. This isn't being inauthentic. This is saying, hey, I have a different viewpoint, but I can totally get behind that. I can totally support you. People will love you for it. Your boss will love you for it. You know why? The higher up you go, people don't tell you the truth. I can tell you that. When you add a position, when you add a title, when you add a title to someone, that's what they see, and they suddenly get scared because you're an authority figure, you're in a power figure, and they don't tell you the truth. And as a leader, the higher up you climb in your career, the more you go in leadership, you have to seek out those opportunities where you have that person telling you the truth. Right? You have that person telling you the truth. You have that person saying, hey, boss man, I don't agree, or boss lady, I don't agree with that, right? I don't agree with that, and here's why. And you want to listen for that. And sometimes you change your mind, and sometimes it is what it is, and you have to carry on. And so share your thoughts. Right? And you can say it like this: here's what I think. May I share another perspective? Have you thought about X, Y, and Z? And you could use those softer approaches until you get to know your boss. When you get to know your boss in a real, close, professional way, you can say, you know what, I don't agree, right? But that is a journey. Until you get to that journey, these are much softer approaches. I'll say them again. Here's what I think. May I share another perspective? Have you thought about X, Y, and Z? Right? And then show your support. Support them. Support them, because they need that support. As an influential leader, you'll need that support as well. That is why I've said to you, if you cannot be led, you cannot lead. You cannot lead, because those very same things that you want for yourself, you're not giving to your boss. There's some people like that. The very same support and encouragement and appreciation and that relationship that they would want for themselves, they're not giving. You have to give. You have to give. You have to sow good seeds, right? You have to put out that energy. You have to show up in that manner. It has to become a part of who you are, right? And so, I have some other, okay, I understand. I wrote some notes. Sometimes I can't even understand my notes, right? Because sometimes I have a general, I'm deviating right now, I have a general idea of what the topic is, like what the theme of the week is, and then I'm like, okay, so how am I going to share this information? And sometimes I'm actually in bed writing notes for this series. So I was a bit confused there, but yeah. But I really hope that these tips help you. Again, I don't share anything with you that I haven't tried. And if I haven't tried it, I will let you know, I haven't. But this is something I've always gone in with. I've always gone in with clear, clean mindset of who is this person. I need to get to know them. I want to understand what's important to them. What's important to them. And when you understand what's important to them, you could work around that. I can tell you right now, another tip I use for managing my relationship with my boss is, once I understand them, and I don't even have to, I shouldn't say once I understand, but if I'm given a task and they give me a deadline, and the deadline is next week Friday, I'm giving you by next week Wednesday or next week Monday. And this is important especially if you have a new boss. You want to build that rapport with them. You want to show them that you are trustworthy. You want to show them that you are reliable. You want to show them that you are predictable. And so if you have a new boss, or even if you're listening right now and this is, you have your boss, right? You have your boss for a while. What you can do, if you're not doing it, anytime you get a deadline, or even if they ask you for something, don't let them have to either give you an instruction, or a task or something. Don't have them ask you for it. You give it to them. I call it always being ahead of them. I've found that this has worked wonders. And what usually happens is you're human. So there are going to be times when you either forget or something else takes its priority. But because you've developed that consistency and because you've already established that pattern, and so they know that, hey, Mary is predictable. When I give her this, she has my back. She supports me. Then that one time that you don't do it, they'll be like, okay, something must be off. And so this is something that I've always practiced. I always want to be 10 steps ahead. You ask me for something, I'm going to do a quick turnaround. I'm going to do a quick turnaround because I want to quickly establish that trust. And so this is something that I encourage you to think at. Sometimes the problem is us. Sometimes the problem is us. Sometimes, when I listen to people talk about their boss and the challenges and this and that, sometimes it is us. Sometimes it is the energy that we are showing up in. Sometimes it is the preconceived notions. Today, I want to encourage you to just make it a clean slate. Whatever has happened, let it happen. You can't change the past. But make it a clean slate today. Go in with the energy of, listen, I want to understand what's important to this person and I want to support this person. Because you cannot lose with that. You cannot lose with that. Like I mentioned, you are building your capacity and your skill set for managing complex relationship, right? And you would want this for yourself. And so try today, start this journey today of managing up. And you can start by asking your boss to go for a coffee. Hey, let's go for a coffee, or hey, let's go to lunch, or something like that. But start today to develop that rapport, that relationship with your boss. Start today to manage up. Okay, so share this out with a work bestie. It has been fun sharing this with you. I'm very confident about it because it has worked for me. Share it out with a work bestie. Share it with someone who's having a challenging relationship with your boss. Share it on your social media, and I will talk to you next week on another wavelength series. Bye.